Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I'm a 21-year-old college student living with my parents while working full-time to pay for my education. My schedule is pretty packed between online classes and work, so when I get some free time, I like to unwind by watching movies in my room. My mom has this cousin who moved into our neighborhood last year with her husband and 8-year-old son. They're the type of people who think they own everything and everyone around them. From day one, they'd show up unannounced and act like our house was their personal playground. The incident that started it all happened during one of their surprise visits. I was watching Predators in my room. You know, that sci-fi horror movie with lots of gore and violence. I had rented it on Amazon and was finally getting to watch it after a long week of work and studies. I heard knocking on my door, and there they were. Karen immediately demanded that her son be allowed to play video games with me. I tried to explain that I was watching a movie that wasn't appropriate for kids, but she dismissed my concerns as ridiculous, insisting her son could watch whatever I was watching. Her husband even jumped in, asking if I was questioning their parenting choices. I attempted to explain about the violence in the movie, but Karen cut me off and ordered me to stop being difficult. At this point, they practically pushed their kid into my room. I tried one last time to warn them, but they weren't having it. Well, surprise, surprise. 10 minutes later, when the predator was ripping someone's spine out, their kid started screaming and crying. My parents came running up to see what was happening. Karen immediately started yelling at me, demanding to know how I dared expose her son to such filth and questioning what was wrong with me. I reminded her that I had tried to warn them multiple times that this wasn't appropriate for children. Her husband joined in, shouting that I should have turned it off and accusing me of traumatizing their son. My parents, bless them, actually started laughing at the situation. My mom pointed out that they had literally forced their way into my room after I had warned them. My dad suggested that maybe next time they should listen when someone tells them something isn't kid-friendly. Karen and her family stormed out of our house. A week later, while I was in the middle of my English 101 online class, the doorbell rang. Opening it, I found a process server who asked if I was me. After I confirmed, he told me I was being served and asked me to sign the papers. They were actually suing me for intentionally causing emotional distress to their child. I immediately started calling defense attorneys, and let me tell you, finding one who didn't think this was a prank call was a challenge. Finally, I found a defense attorney who believed me. He admitted it was one of the most ridiculous cases he'd seen, but stressed that we needed to take it seriously. When I mentioned having the Amazon rental receipt and my parents as witnesses, he seemed pleased. Given my situation as a working student, he offered me a reduced rate. 2 months later, we were in court. The entitled mother took the stand first. Their lawyer asked if her son had suffered emotional distress from the movie, to which she dramatically claimed he'd had nightmares for days and complained about my lack of remorse. My lawyer then questioned her, getting her to admit she hadn't asked about the movie before entering and that I had warned them about the content being inappropriate for children. When it was my turn to testify, I told the truth about everything. Their lawyer tried to twist my words, asking if I had let an 8-year-old watch an R-rated movie. I explained that I had done so under duress after multiple warnings. When their lawyer tried to get the judge to restrict my answers to yes or no only, the judge supported my right to tell the complete truth under oath. The jury took less than an hour to come back with their verdict. Not only did they rule in my favor, but the judge had some choice words for Karen. He declared it one of the most frivolous lawsuits he'd seen in his courtroom, pointing out that I had repeatedly warned them about the content, which they had ignored. He ordered them to pay all court costs and my legal fees, totaling $20,000. Karen couldn't contain herself and started shouting about the jury being rigged, but the judge quickly shut her down with a threat of contempt of court. The look on her face when she realized she had to pay $20,000 for her own entitled behavior was out of this world. Last I heard, They're trying to sell their house and move away. Good riddance, I say. I've been working as a bartender in this small town for about 5 years now. Started right after finishing my business degree when I realized that the corporate world wasn't for me. The flexibility of night shifts actually suits me perfectly. Decent money, interesting people watching, and the ability to run errands when most folks are sleeping. Plus, working at one of the most popular bars downtown means I pretty much know all the local characters, both the good and the bad. My shift usually ends around 3:30 a.m., and I've made it a habit to do my shopping at the 24-hour Walmart right after. There's something peaceful about shopping when the store is practically empty. Just me, a few night shift workers, and the occasional insomniac. This night I had just finished a pretty good shift. The tips were excellent, and I was in a generous mood as I pushed my cart through the quiet aisles, picking up a few essentials. That's when they approached me, two guys in flashy clothes that looked completely out of place for a 4 a.m. Walmart run. One of them came up with the usual sob story. He claimed he'd just dropped his girlfriend off at the hospital after having a baby, and now he needed diapers but couldn't afford them since he wouldn't get paid until Friday. I instantly recognized them. These guys were infamous downtown. They'd been banned from almost every bar in the area, including mine, for stealing drinks from customers' tables. I'd personally thrown them out twice. They didn't seem to recognize me though, probably because they were usually too wasted when they got kicked out. I cheerfully agreed to help them out, acting completely oblivious to their scam. I knew exactly what they were up to. It was a common scam: get someone to buy expensive diapers, wait for them to leave, then return them for cash. But I decided to play along and even take it up a notch. When we reached the baby section, the scammer grabbed a medium-priced pack of diapers. I told him to go for the more expensive option instead, the $32 box from the top shelf. I even played it up, mentioning that I had 2 kids of my own and understood how tough things were. His eyes lit up like a kid on Christmas morning. He and his buddy exchanged excited looks as they grabbed the biggest box of diapers they could find. But their excitement started to fade when I headed toward the self-checkout instead of the regular lane. The scammer tried to steer me toward the regular checkout, suggesting it might be easier. I brushed off his suggestion, claiming the self-checkout would be quicker since there was no line. I could see them getting antsy as I scanned the diapers. Then I grabbed a Blu-ray movie and added it to my purchase, along with the extended protection plan. When the scammer asked for the receipt, I had my excuse ready. I explained that I needed to keep it for the protection plan code on the movie. I wished them luck with their supposed new baby and handed over the diapers. I pretended to head toward the pet food section. Instead, I spent the next half hour secretly watching their increasingly desperate attempts to return the diapers. The night shift cashiers kept shaking their heads. No receipt, no refund. One of the cashiers warned me about their scam, telling me they'd tried to return the diapers for cash the moment I left. I revealed that I knew exactly who they were and explained my plan with the protection plan and card payment, which gave me a perfect excuse to keep the receipt. The cashier burst out laughing. As I drove home, I spotted them trudging down the street in their clubbing outfits, carrying this massive box of diapers. I couldn't resist honking and waving as I passed. The best part came a few weeks later. I was back at Walmart after my shift when I felt a tap on my shoulder. It was the same scammer, clearly not remembering our previous encounter. He started his pitch asking for help, but when I cheerfully asked if he needed more diapers, he started stammering and making excuses before practically running away, nearly knocking over a display in his hurry to escape. I heard later that they'd tried to sell the diapers on social media for half price, but nobody wanted to buy diapers from 2 sketchy guys in a parking lot. Last I heard, they ended up donating them to a women's shelter after failing to get rid of them any other way. The best revenge isn't just getting even, it's forcing scammers to accidentally do something good for the community. I still see them downtown occasionally, but now they cross the street when they spot me coming. I've always been passionate about kayaking, having spent countless weekends exploring rivers and lakes since my college days. When I moved to a new area last year, I was excited to find a local kayaking group that regularly organized outings. It seemed perfect, a chance to meet fellow enthusiasts and discover new waterways in my area. During the height of the coronavirus pandemic in 2020, I joined their mailing list to stay updated on events and safety protocols. Everything was going smoothly until one day I received an email that made my blood boil. The kayak shop owner, who ran both the group and a local equipment store, sent out a mass email filled with racist comments about the pandemic's origins and certain ethnic groups. As someone whose best friend growing up was of Asian descent, I couldn't just let this slide. I took a screenshot of the email and posted it on Yelp, with a simple review stating that the shop owner apparently thinks customers want a side of racism with their paddle equipment. What happened next was both infuriating and amusing. The owner immediately responded by claiming he couldn't be racist because his wife was Chinese. I pointed out that his wife wasn't even Chinese but Vietnamese. He dismissed this correction, saying it was beside the point and expressing how deeply offended he was at being called racist. I responded by noting how interesting it was that he seemed more offended by being called racist than by actually being racist. He then accused me of trying to destroy his business with lies and demanded I take the review down. I decided to let it go and let other customers judge for themselves. And judge they did. The review started getting attention from local kayaking enthusiasts, many of whom shared similar experiences with the owner's inappropriate comments. Fast forward to a few months ago, I noticed something odd on their Yelp page. The business name had changed slightly and there were new responses to negative reviews. They were claiming to be under new ownership and asking people to give them another chance. This caught my attention. Living in a small community where everyone knows everyone, something felt off. I started asking around, but I didn't have to look far. Their own website still had the original owner's name plastered all over it in the About Us section, the blog posts, even the contact information. That's when my petty side kicked in. I updated my review by pointing out their claim about new ownership and included screenshots from their website showing the same owner was still in charge. They tried to get my update removed, so I added another comment suggesting that if they were going to lie about new ownership, they should at least remove the original owner's name from every single page of their website first. Their manager tried claiming the review was outdated and should be removed. I responded by telling them I had found 5 more pages showing the original owner was still in charge, and offered to share those too. This back and forth continued for days. Each time they tried to remove my updates, I came back with more evidence. Finally, they gave up and removed all their responses to my review. But I wasn't done. I called my friend who's deeply connected in the local kayaking community. I told her that the shop was still owned by the same person and they were just trying to cover up their tracks. She was shocked, telling me they had been telling everyone they were under new management. I confirmed it was the same owner with the same problems and showed her all the evidence I collected. The aftermath was beautiful. They had to scrub their entire website of the owner's personal information. They were forced to disconnect from the original kayaking group because it became impossible to hide the connection. Their reputation in the local kayaking community took another hit when word spread about their attempted deception. Other local kayaking enthusiasts started sharing their own stories about the owner's inappropriate behavior over the years. What started as my single review turned into a community-wide awakening about this person's true character. Their business has taken a significant hit, with many loyal customers switching to other shops in neighboring towns. The owner still runs the place, but now he has to do it without the benefit of the community's trust, all because he couldn't resist sending that racist email, and then tried to lie his way out of the consequences. For context, I'm a travel photographer, and my now husband is a nature documentary filmmaker. We met while working on a project in New Zealand 3 years ago, and it was like fate brought us together. We both love remote locations and the peace they bring, so when it came to planning our honeymoon, we knew exactly what we wanted. We spent months researching and finally found this incredible eco-resort in Bali, hidden away in the mountains. It was perfect. Solar-powered bungalows, private pools, and complete serenity. We booked it for 2 weeks, splurging on the honeymoon suite because, hey, you only get married once, right? Everything was set until my aunt got wind of our plans during the wedding reception. She practically squealed with excitement when she heard about Bali, declaring it was exactly what she needed right then. According to her, the universe was clearly sending her a sign. When I asked her what she meant, she launched into an explanation about her spiritual awakening since her divorce and her desperate need to reconnect with her inner goddess. I tried to be polite, saying that was nice and suggesting there were plenty of other great retreats in Bali, but she wouldn't hear it. She became even more excited, announcing she would book the same resort and asking about our dates. When I explained it was our honeymoon and we wanted privacy, she dismissed my concerns entirely. She even revealed she'd already found a perfect group healing session at the resort during our stay and had signed us all up for it. My husband and I exchanged horrified looks. We couldn't believe she'd already researched activities at our resort. I tried again to explain that this was our honeymoon and we wanted to spend it alone. That's when the waterworks started. She began crying, accusing me of being selfish and reminding me of everything she'd been through with her divorce. When I attempted to sympathize while standing my ground, she cut me off, dramatically declaring she was having a spiritual emergency. She insisted we could have romantic time any other day, but this retreat was calling to her soul. The next day, I got a notification from the resort. She had actually booked a room for the exact same dates as our honeymoon. Not a day earlier or later, the exact same dates. She even posted about it on social media, calling it a family healing retreat and tagging us. That's when I'd had enough. I called the resort and explained the situation. The manager was incredibly understanding, especially when I mentioned it was our honeymoon. They offered to move us to their sister property on a different island, an even more exclusive resort that they usually reserve for celebrities wanting privacy. They have a strict no outside bookings policy without direct referrals. I changed our flights without telling anyone and quietly modified our reservations. My aunt only found out we weren't coming when she showed up at the original resort alone. She bombarded my phone with messages, first demanding to know where we were, then panicking about the spiritual guide waiting for our group session, and finally insisting we reimburse her for all the money she'd spent. I sent her one simple message explaining that this was never meant to be a family trip, that it was our honeymoon, and wished her a good spiritual retreat. Then I turned off my phone for 2 weeks while my husband and I enjoyed our actual honeymoon in peace. Later I found out she'd spent the entire time posting passive-aggressive social media updates about toxic family members and spiritual abandonment. She couldn't get a refund because it was past the cancellation window. My husband and I ended up having an incredible honeymoon, completely ant-free. We swam in our private infinity pool, watched sunsets from our treehouse villa, and didn't attend a single group healing session. Sometimes we look at the pictures and laugh about how we dodged that bullet. The original resort now has a new policy about booking accommodations for other people's honeymoons. Apparently, we weren't the first ones to deal with something like this, but the manager made sure we'd be the last. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.